is the Future Talk, protecting forests, protecting the planet, financing solutions for nature and climate. Please welcome to the stage Kenneth Awatu-Dako from Joy News and My Joy Online.
Thank you very much, everyone in this room today. You're welcome to this session. It has been an interesting one so far, and I know some of you have been in different sessions and have understood what sustainability in every other sector means. Today, we are here to talk about forest financing, as you can see, you saw on the board earlier, and how it is going to ensure that voices that matter, or voices whose lives revolve around sustainability, will be able to be considered in the value chain when it comes to financing in the forest area. We know forests are actually home to millions of people. In terms of the biodiversity ecosystem, we know that 2/3 of the biodiversity ecosystem revolves around forests. And so it is important that we put that at the forefront of a conference as big as the Hamburg Sustainability Conference. It is also important that we know there have been conversations already. We know that in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, the global stocktake, there are various mechanisms that have ensured or targeted that by 2030, there is a halt in forest losses and land degradation. That is why it is important that we have this conversation here today. With that being said, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. We have people from very diverse backgrounds to ensure that there is some very nuanced voices being heard in the sustainability conversation. So without much ado, I would like to introduce our our speakers for today. First of all, I'd like to talk about Jochen Flasbarth, who is the State Secretary for German Federal Ministry for Environment, Climate Change, Nature Conservation, and Nuclear Safety. Can we give him a round of applause? I would also like to welcome on the podium Dinamam Tuxá, who is the Indigenous leader of the Tuxá people and executive coordinator of Articulation of Indigenous People of Brazil. He will also be joined by another panelist, who is Alcebias Mota Constantino. He is the Deputy General Coordinator of Indigenous Organizations of Brazilian Amazon. And also his organization is one of the regional organizations within the Indigenous movement that at the national level forms part of the National Articulation of Indigenous People of Brazil, APIB as well. So he joins us over there as well. Next to join the panel right now is Carolina Pasquali. She is Executive Director of Greenpeace Brazil. Last but not the least is Leslie Ouarzazi. She is the Deputy Head of Central African Forest Initiative, CAFI, at the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP. So as you can see, as I mentioned, the panel is a very diverse one from different backgrounds to ensure that there is a very holistic approach to the conversation of conservation in terms of forest financing, among others. So I would like to set the tone with Mr. Flasbarth.
Thanks a lot, moderator. Thanks a lot, my dear friends here around the podium. At the outset, I have to apologize because immediately I've given my intervention. I have to leave. It's not the culture we want to have at the HSC. We want to talk with each other what we did so prior to this event. So let me be very brief. For the German government, the global forest protection is of highest importance. Protection and sustainable use of forest. We had a highlight in the development of the international climate negotiations back in at COP21 in Glasgow. Was it 21? No, it was 26. Sorry, 26. It was in 21. It was COP26 in Glasgow with a forest climate finance pledge and a very clear commitment for the support of forests around the globe. We gathered 11 billion US dollar as a pledge, Germany being part, with 2 billion US dollars in the time between 2021 and 2025. That was already quite an amount of money. We reconfirmed our commitment at COP28, now I have the numbers right, and as a global stock take, and this again is a good one. But still, there is an open issue because we do not have the right systematic instrument for funding the standing forest. And this includes also the territories of the indigenous people, I want to underline at that point in time. And therefore, we need to create more intelligence. It's a matter of financing the standing forest. It's also a matter of fairness. Because with Article 6, we finally in Baku have the full set of regulation to finance reforestation or restoration of degraded forest landscapes. And those countries that are still holding virgin forests, what they say is, it's not fair that those who clear-cut their forests in the past do have access to finance, whereas we, protecting our forests, be it national-wide or in indigenous territories, we do not have access to constant and reliable funding schemes. And therefore, we as a German government, and I personally feel that the idea of our Brazilian friends to create a Tropical Forest Forever facility, the TFFF, the TFFF, is a fantastic idea. We are behind it. I had today, but also in the past, talks with the Brazilian government that we are in support of the idea of the mechanism. There are still a lot of questions to be answered, and I said it at the Biodiversity COP in Cali. We, from the German side, are asking question not to get rid of the idea, but to solve it. We want to get this done. But still there are a lot of issues, how to get the enormous amount of $125 billion. I know it's not grants, it is loans and it is private sector money, but still to get this money on board, this is not an easy piece. The second one is environmental integrity. Of course, we want to get this money getting into the right channels to do what they should do, and that is to protect the forest and in an integral way. Secondly, to my colleagues here, we want to get the rights of the indigenous people and communities and the local communities respected. And not to undermine their rights, and therefore we need a way how to channel the parts of the money directly to these communities. And thirdly, it is about the investment, because the mechanism operates in a way that the total amount of money is invested, and the return of investment will go to the forests around the globe in the tropical forests. And therefore, of course, it's essential that these investments do not undermine our climate agenda, nor our biodiversity, our soil and our water agenda. So in a way, these investments have to be done in a sustainable way. And all this together is not easy to solve. But again, we are, from the German side, behind it. We work for it. We hopefully get most of the questions solved by the COP in Belém, at least get a political clear commitment that we want to get this get online. So thanks a lot that you accepted that I just give my speech at the beginning. I really feel bad, I have to say to you now, but we will meet again the latest in Belém. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Flasbarth. Please give me a round of applause as we I also like to mention that even though he leaves, there is a representative here in the building that will be here to listen to all the concerns if there is need for that, and then she will channel the consensus. So let me welcome Katarina Lehmann-Ochoa. She works with the Ministry on International Financing, and she will be right here with us. So now that we have what we would have termed the keynote out of the way, because he has another urgent assignment to be on, we'll now move on to the deeper conversation that we have today. It has been very considerable, the amount of effort that, according to Mr. Flasbarth, is being put in terms of forest financing. He mentioned the fact that the TFFF is one thing that is being advocated for, but that is just one of the frameworks that have been in the process of being implemented to ensure that there is a more sustainable way to finance the forest and ensure that there is voices to the indigenous people like we have here today as well. But my first question will go to Dinamam. Now, you have observed the impact of climate change in the Amazon, and you have seen real life effects in terms of how it is changing lives in the area that you reside as well. What exactly, or how urgent is the need for a better financing mechanism when it comes to financing in the forest?
Boa tarde a todos e a todas. Bom, primeiramente agradecer aqui essa oportunidade de poder trazer um pouco da nossa realidade partindo do território. É importante pontuar que hoje nós vivenciamos uma crise civilizatória e ambiental. E essa crise civilizatória e ambiental ela é ocasionada por intervenção humana e que não é feita pelos povos indígenas. Hoje, historicamente, os povos indígenas, o seu modo de viver já é um modo de preservação e conservação. E nós, no nosso modo de viver, protegemos hoje 85% da biodiversidade do mundo. E essa defesa que nós fazemos dos nossos territórios é para a nossa existência enquanto povos indígenas específicos e diferenciados que somos. Mas, diante disso, o que nós precisamos pontuar aqui é que as nossas iniciativas elas não são potencializadas pelos grandes países, pelas grandes economias. E os financiamentos e os pledges que foram anunciados em Glasgow, por exemplo, de 1,7 bi, não chegou nas terras indígenas. Nós buscamos e criamos formas e mecanismos para acessar esses financiamentos, como os fundos indígenas, como o Jaguatá, o Ratã, que é um fundo local, o Podali, que é um fundo regional da região amazônica brasileira. E reforçamos aqui que as nossas iniciativas precisam de ter o financiamento direto. O TFFF é um dos mecanismos que está sendo buscado para captação de recursos, mas que precisa ser assegurado o financiamento direto para os territórios indígenas. Nós já fazemos essa proteção de uma forma muito natural. E se falar de biodiversidade e falar de conservação e preservação, os povos indígenas fazem parte da solução para conter a crise climática. Mas, infelizmente, hoje, os financiamentos e os pledges anunciados nas COPs, eles não chegam nos territórios indígenas. Diante disso, nós reforçamos da necessidade de anúncios concretos, de pledges que sejam executáveis e que assegure que esses recursos, de fato, cheguem nos territórios indígenas. Nós pautamos também a burocracia que foi instalada no anúncio desses valores, desse financiamento. É muito burocrático que dificulta o acesso dos povos indígenas a esses financiamentos. Então, reforçamos aqui que todo ou qualquer anúncio que tenha de financiamento climático assegure a participação, seja na construção ou no acesso a esses recursos. Os povos indígenas já estão preparados, sempre estiveram preparados para fazer a defesa da biodiversidade e dos territórios. Mas nós precisamos potencializar essa proteção através dos financiamentos diretos. Nós somos os verdadeiros defensores dessa biodiversidade e, de forma natural, nós temos feito o enfrentamento. E, diante disso, repito, reforçamos a necessidade de mecanismo de financiamento direto que busque, de fato, financiar quem faz o enfrentamento às mudanças climáticas e ao aquecimento global. Obrigado.
So those were very powerful words. You know, I mean, the fact that he emphasized the issue of they being the very first defense line when it comes to, you know, standing in for biodiversity and ensuring that their forests are protected, which in a larger scheme of things go on to protect the rest of the world. As we know, the Amazon is the lungs of the world. And so it is very important that he makes statements like this. And then the powers that be take advantage of some of these concerns that have been raised. Now, I'll go to our next panelist on the platform right now. Leslie, you have been in the thick of things when it comes to the Central African Republic. How exactly do you think, in terms of policy, some of the misuse of land, I mean, some of the uses of the land contribute to emissions? And we are looking at shifting that usage onto creating conservation and improving the livelihoods of people who live around these forest areas as well. So in terms of policy, what do you think will be a shift from your perspective from the CAFI area? What do you think will ensure that this possibility becomes a reality?
So thank you very much for the question, and thank you for the invitation. So the Central African Forest Initiative is an initiative between a coalition of Congo Basin countries, so 6 countries, and a coalition of donors, and Germany being one of the contributors. It's been a 10 years initiative, and this initiative supports policy reforms and investments on the ground. So thanks to the contribution, it became the largest UN climate fund, so dedicated to Central Africa with almost $1 billion. And a lot of things have been done. Actually, the governments of the region promoted a lot of reforms in the past decades. So land tenure reforms, land use planning reforms, reforms on the forestry sectors were undertaken and promoted. But there are results. But the main challenge is, as mentioned by the present participant, is direct access to financing for communities. Because actually in the Congo Basin countries, what we face, there is still like very high deforestation, but compared to the other tropical forest basins, deforestation is still low if we compare it to the others. And so it's still low, and the dynamic drivers of deforestation are different because it comes from small-scale activities. You know, when you have a lot of, in some countries, you do not have a population in forested areas, but in some of them, there are a lot of population in forested areas, very poor, and they do small-scale activities for food, access to charcoal, small-scale activities for timber, and so it's due to poverty. And these people who conserve the forest also need the forest because of poverty. And so you can do a lot of policy reforms, but if you do not change the incentives on the ground, you know, if you do not provide them like other economic incentive to change their practices, you know, because of the population growth, the deforestation will increase. So CAFI is a UN trust fund. I also, I'm UNDP staff, so I work for a UN agency. But what we see is that the money goes through lots of intermediaries, and the money is lost because of these intermediaries, even with my contract. So what we need is to find schemes for these people to have direct incentives on the ground. When they preserve forests, they can be rewarded directly. And there's not a lot of things to invent. You know, Costa Rica did it 20 years ago with payments for environmental services. So yes, they did a lot of reforms, on the forestry sector, on conservation, protected areas. So we need reforms, but they also developed this PES, payment for environmental services approach, to give direct incentives to communities and indigenous people. And we see that it is functioning. There is a blending of international resources and domestic resources, and they have long-term contracts with the communities on the ground. So we really believe in CAFI, but mostly the Congo Basin countries, they're really cool for these PES schemes to be like an approach, to mainstream in the way, we finance forest conservation. So
right.
that's
Thank you very much.
what I would say. Thanks.
Please give her a round of applause. He deserves it. Right, so this is a good point to pivot into this other conversation. We know COP30 is on its way, and we see this as a very great moment to link nature with some of these big conversations. And this question, I'd like to talk to Pasquali, Carolina. What are some of the key elements that you think are important that should come up as this very big conference comes to the Amazon this time?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. I just want to also thank my colleagues. We have this opportunity of hosting a COP, a climate conference in such an important rainforest and the hubspot of the biggest and greatest biodiversity on Earth. And I think that's a great opportunity for us to really propose that match and that conversation to be fueled. Of course, we need to use this opportunity as a global community to really implement a proper plan to deal with deforestation and forest degradation. We have the goal of dealing with it until 2030, but we need to take another step and actually start talking about how we are getting there and what is the plan, the action plan needed for it to happen. And it's not only about finance, but it's about creating and crafting solutions that are appropriate to all the differences that we have and also to the scenario that we are facing right now. And that includes domestic challenges, domestic pressures. And we, of course, for example, now in Brazil, are facing a lot of pushbacks from Congress in relation to laws that are being approved or to discussions that could harm deforestation. At the same time, we have deforestation rates coming down, but that shows us how fragile that is unless it's proper parked in a plan, a full commitment and funded, and finding solutions for the people on the ground. We cannot forget that we have 30 million people living in the Amazon, for example, that need to thrive, and they need solutions in order to do that. So that's why we think the COP needs to deliver a proper plan to implement how are we going to achieve zero deforestation and low degradation by 2030. And that needs to be something built by all countries involved, led by, of course, the Brazilian presidency, and all the other challenges that, of course, this COP also has to tackle, because we can't only talk about forests if we are not talking about fossil fuels and the harm that it's creating, right? Right now, for example, as I said, the deforestation rates in the Amazon are lowering, but we have been dealing with huge crises caused by climate change itself on the Amazon. So we had extreme drought for the past 2 years, for example, and that does disrupt the system a lot, because those people, they navigate. They access what they need, supplies and stuff, by rivers. And if the rivers are dry, how do you do it? So we are in a moment where the scientists that are monitoring the Amazon are frightened. They are saying we are reaching a point where this could be a really, really key moment for us to turn things around. So I think COP has that ambitious goal, and we are really confident that if we come together we can deliver it, or at least we can deliver as close to it as possible, because there is no time left. We really are seeing the effects. I'm not even going to mention extreme weather events, because I think everyone here, no matter where you come from, you have examples to share, right, from this past year. So I think that's the time, that's the moment that we are in now. And this COP has these two challenges. How do we face that, and how do we really increase ambition on the NDCs that are going to be presented? Some have been already, but then we are expecting others. At the same time, how do we bring those crises together, and how do we tackle that, and how do we implement everything that has already been discussed in different work streams and different groups and work programs, and and then bring it together to make it happen and to make it real. I think that's our biggest challenge.
All right, please give a round of applause for us. And I say this because he has mentioned a lot of things that are in conversations ahead of COP30, and she has brushed over a few of them, but I would like her to go, and I'd like to stay with her this time to go a bit deeper into some of these things. So if you talk about finding different modalities, if you look at the existing financing frameworks in terms of the forests and how they have been couched so far, we have heard different concerns from different avenues as to other ways that it could have been done. We are talking about the TFFF as well, among other financing mechanisms that are already at play. As COP approaches, if you look at the fact that some of these issues have been raised with some existing frameworks, as civil society, and I acknowledge the fact that you are executive director for Greenpeace Brazil, as an organization and as other civil societies alike, what do you think can be reformed in the current existing frameworks? And do you think there are other initiatives that you feel like, if brought on board, will make these mechanisms more tailored towards the indigenous and the people who actually need the benefits of those mechanisms?
Yeah, okay. I think, taking a step back, we are talking about this year, we are discussing the roadmap Baku Belém, which has this great mission of mobilizing 1.3 trillion in order to finance everything that needs to be financed within that umbrella that you've just described. I think what we expect is that we can see that we are funneling and creating mechanisms that really answer to the questions that are on the table, because we already know what those questions are. We know what the flaws are. We know what false solutions look like. We've been there. We've tried this before, and we know that they don't take us out of where we are right now. So I think that's the number one question, is this really going to provide new and for real solutions that we really can implement? And that, of course, includes direct access for indigenous peoples and local communities, because there is no need for more evidence other than the fact that everything that has already been shared and stated regarding their ability to preserve the land that they inhabit. And they have done it for generations. And we know it. And still, they have a lot of difficulties to really access the money. And not only the money, they are also all the time, especially, and I'm talking about Brazil because that's what I know more, but facing pushbacks on their territorial rights, facing pushbacks on how the economic activities allowed in their territories are discussed in the society. So I think we really need to tackle that. And then when it comes to, for example, TFFF, we do believe it's a good concept and it's a good idea, and we are supportive of it. But of course, there are things that still need to be answered, and I was quite happy because the State Secretary basically mentioned them all, so I don't need to repeat myself, and I'm really glad that we agreed on that. But we have published a policy briefing. It's available online on the Greenpeace website, and also we have some printed copies here if you are interested. that highlights what we see as, the things that need to be tackled. That mechanism is under development, so it's being designed. So we think it needs to look, for example, to preserve high integrity ecosystems and high integrity forests, and not allow forest degradation. And that implies having, a good mechanism to track that. And that is already available. So why don't we, right? And then, of course, also discuss direct access and the percentage that the indigenous people are getting from that. And how is the governance structured, how transparent it is, and where is the money going to be invested? Because then if you don't pay attention to that, you are kind of trying to solve something by fueling what does create that in the first place. So, these are some of the things that are on the table right now. We expect the next concept note to come with those answers. And we are looking forward to that because we think if it's done right, it could be a game changer.
Right. Thank you very much. So this very in-depth breakdown that she gave leads me to another angle of what I'm looking to establish today. When we talk about financing mechanisms, there's always big talk about the percentages, who is going to, what is exactly is going to do, but there is usually very little talk about equity and how efficient or effective that distribution is going to be and how long-term or whether sustainable or not that financing mechanism is going to be. So this is for Leslie. How exactly do you think financing mechanisms could be designed to address the issue of equity, efficiency, and also long-term sustainability?
Thank you. So I was talking about payment for environmental services. This is a performance-based mechanism. Like you plant how many hectares or you conserve how many hectares, it's verified, and you received a payment. Actually, we have the same in the European Union, with the PAC, the agricultural policy of the European Union. There are subsidies, for agriculture. And we believe that these subsidies should also be provided for forest preservation, and these incentives shall be provided to the local communities and farmers for forest preservation. So this is effective in the sense that, you see the results and you pay for it. Until now, the results were quantified through carbon, and there were lots of methodologies and complexities. And as mentioned previously, it is sometimes very difficult for local communities to see how to navigate, this mechanism. So we believe that we should move towards very transparent mechanisms that reward results, but based on simple things. Again, you conserve this many hectares, and we verify, there is a verification, and there is a payment. And this can be done, with the technologies we have access to. There will be a panel after this which will discuss, innovation and technologies. So there is the possibility to actually the Congo Basin countries developed a tool, information management tool, to centralize all the data, the information from the application of the farmers to the contracting, verification, and payment. So there is a need for centralization, and there is also a need for more maybe confidence from donors towards their partner countries. Again, I'm from an international organization. I think those are important, but the countries, they develop their systems, and there is a need for more confidence on national systems. And if you pay for results, you don't take risk. If there is no result, you won't pay. But there is a need maybe to support some national systems which demonstrate results, and it will help them to blend domestic finance and international revenue. I will take just one concrete example. For instance, in Cameroon, they established a national fund for cocoa and coffee, and they enrolled a lot of farmers. They have, Cameroon is the third cocoa producer in the world, and they would like not to repeat what has been done in Ivory Coast, and to have a sustainable production and free production of cocoa. And so with a national tax, they provide domestic funding to this fund. And what we try to promote is to give international grants, but also promote maybe new funding mechanisms such as loan, sustainability-linked loan. And what would be the difference with a classic loan is that performance will not be rewarded against financial metrics, but against sustainability indicators. So, the government of Cameroon is willing to take a loan, and maybe with the grant from the international community, if they achieve, their performance indicators, the grant would help them repay, reduce the interest, So we need to find ways to see how to combine international revenues with domestic funding to support the establishment of national systems and towards, performance-based mechanisms, but which are not based on carbon or deforestation reduction, but concrete results on the ground. Again, the number of hectares of you produce or you conserve.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Please give a round of applause once again. Because a lot of the things you talked about resonate with me personally, because I'm from Ghana, West Africa. Some of the products you mentioned, like cocoa, is a very big export product where I come from. And so we are also facing similar challenges in terms of deforestation. And the government is also trying its best to combat that while ensuring that the farmers and the indigenous people over there are able to get value for what they produce as well. So that very much resonates with me. But I would like to move on to Alsabia's Mota. Now, we have talked about the different mechanisms. As you, with your background from the indigenous perspective, is there any of these modalities or frameworks that you think could potentially ensure better access or accessibility for indigenous people and also lead to probably some better community-led solutions, in your opinion? Yeah.
Hello. Boa tarde. Meio rouco, peço desculpa pela voz, que eu estou há mais de 10 dias viajando fora do meu território. Morbemã, não pode comozeurã, Rorai Pampom, Uieze, Crape, Arimaragrá, Marcos Pel, Cebias. Bom, me apresentei na minha língua, eu sou do estado de Roraima, de um território muito conhecido no Brasil, território que ao longo de muitos anos lutou contra a invasão de garimpeiros, fazendeiros, e na última nossa briga a gente brigou com grandes fazendeiros com a questão da monocultura, né? E aí é um território que está se recuperando de toda a degradação ambiental. E aí, eu peço desculpa, o tempo está acabando, mas eu quero ser bem breve, mas também bem objetivo com vocês. A gente está falando muito, quando a gente foi colonizado, a gente foi obrigado a falar essa língua que nós estamos falando hoje. E ao longo do tempo, a gente vem, há 525 anos, quando a gente foi colonizado, a gente foi obrigado a se reinventar. A gente foi obrigado a criar barreiras para que a gente não pudéssemos ser dizimados. E esses 525 anos se passou, hoje estamos aqui. Eu nunca imaginava estar aqui conversando com os senhores, representantes de várias instâncias aqui, tanto de governo, instituições, enfim. O que eu quero dizer para vocês, para os senhores, é que ao longo do tempo, os territórios indígenas, o cenário ele obrigou a gente a falar palavras técnicas. É o que a gente está fazendo hoje, é o que a gente criou hoje. Quando se fala de mecanismo, de fundo, a gente criou as nossas estratégias para captação de recursos, criou as nossas estratégias para o enfrentamento do nosso desmonte, que 525 anos de colonização não é fácil sobreviver, né? E aí, eu acho que a pergunta principal dentro do cenário de captação de recursos é: o que é o território para vocês? O que é o território para vocês? O que é a casa de vocês para vocês? O que é a casa de vocês para vocês? Porque daqui a 50 anos, se a gente não souber fazer essa pergunta para nós, daqui a 50 anos, 60 anos, nós vamos tratar os territórios como mercadoria. Já chega de sermos colonizados. Porque daqui a 50 anos eu vou estar vendendo no meu neto, meu filho, meu sobrinho, a geração que está vindo. O território, além de tudo, precisamos sim de financiamento. Mas o território para nós é como você chegasse numa casa, na sua casa, depois dessa reunião intensa, muitas coisas para resolver, e você encontrasse um conforto. E você tivesse um momento de paz, de descansar e refletir naquilo que passou. O território para nós é assim. A nossa conexão com os nossos ancestrais é assim. De fato, a colonização obrigou a gente a falar: olha, está vindo monocultura, está vindo mineração para dentro da terra de você. Você precisa se organizar. E nós nos organizamos como organizações, como instituições, formamos as nossas lideranças, mas nós não queremos tratar o nosso território como mercadoria. Não nos trate como mercadoria. E os governos hoje que tem, seja ele brasileiro ou não, eu cobro muito o governo da minha casa, o governo brasileiro. São 525 anos de colonização. E até hoje estão criando políticas públicas para nos dizimar. Essa semana mesmo tiveram um desmonte, desmarcaram 2 terras indígenas lá no meu país. Primeiro eu organizo a minha casa, eu vou bater em quem é para ser batido. Depois eu vim falar com vocês. A gente precisa sim de financiamento para enfrentar as mudanças climáticas. Mas os nossos territórios, eles não são mercadorias. Os nossos territórios é a nossa casa, é a nossa conexão com o nosso mundo, com o que nós somos. E a responsabilidade não é só dos povos indígenas. A responsabilidade é de todos nós. É de todos nós. Não é só minha, do Dinamam, da nossa parente, da nossa parceira e da nossa outra parceira aqui. Não é. É de todas nós. Porque daqui a 100 anos, se a gente não fazer as nossas ações, planos a gente tem. Muitas COPs, muitas incidências, muitas conferências tem. As ações é que não estão acontecendo. Elas precisam sair do papel. Elas precisam ser concretizadas, elas precisam ter firmeza nas palavras e nos papéis. Isso é responsabilidade nossa, de nós que estamos trazendo a nossa experiência, dos senhores que estão nos ouvindo, toda a conjuntura. Isso somos nós. Porque muito bem vocês sabem, os estudos que estão sendo feitos, olha, daqui 2030, 2050, o mundo vai esquentar, e ninguém está fazendo nada. Exceto a gente trazendo, desde quando a gente começou a participar dessas incidências internacionais, a gente falava, o caminho é isso aqui, a resposta somos nós. Vocês não estão nos ouvindo. Será que vai esperar tudo isso começar a acontecer para depois nos ouvir? Não. Isso é responsabilidade nossa. Mas no mais é isso, já até acabei o tempo aqui, peço desculpa, que eu fico bravo mesmo, aí eu falo.
Now, that was a very powerful speech that was given over there. I'm even moved by the sentiment that he was, communicating. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of today's session. It has been a very interesting one, and I'm sure everybody is leaving here with one thing in mind, that the issue of climate and biodiversity agendas cannot be achieved just on paper alone, that it takes very committed efforts from people who are involved to also ensure that they involve the voices of the indigenous people in local communities and many minorities who also have a say when it comes to the conservation of the forest and how it affects their livelihoods as well. So once again, I'd like to thank my panel members very much for doing this with me, and I wish them all the best in their various endeavors. Also, the audience, you've been very fantastic, and I thank you for being with us. Thank you. My name is Kenneth Awashidako. I'm from Ghana, West Africa, and I'm happy to have done this with all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.